Welcome to Nice Ashes. This is Mike.
And I'm Nate.
What are we smoking today, Nate?
We are doing the Nub Habano, the 5-inch. So it's about a full inch longer than the rest of their nubs.
Yes. And last episode we did the 4-inch nub. And I think that we smoked it too fast because I let it sit and I smoked a little bit more. And Nate and I were talking about this before the show. And it did sweeten up again until about an inch left of the cigar. So we'll see what we do with this one.
So it's a race. Here we go. Well, and we can see if the added inch changes anything about the overall smoke.
Sure. Sooner not pleasant enough.
Yeah.
There should be a surprise to no one.
Yeah, kind of like how I remember from last episode.
Right. So, what are we going to talk about today?
Oh, I was just going to say, and you said just puff down on this thing, right? Just like in those cartoons, you remember watching like the old Looney Tunes when a character would smoke a cigar and they'd smoke it all in one puff? And so they'd have a full like cigar length of ash that would then fall to the ground with perfect comedic timing.
Yes.
Well, I thought we'd talk about visitors.
Visitors. That's an interesting way to put it.
Well, visitors from outer space, aliens or extraterrestrials.
Mm-hmm.
For those, depending on how much research you've done into them. I've not done a whole lot of research into aliens. What about you, Mike?
I read Bob Lazar's book, and I've listened to many podcasts about aliens.
Okay, so this will be a good topic then for us to talk about. So,
did you listen to the Joe Rogan episode with Bob Lazar?
Nope, I don't know who Bob Lazar is.
Okay.
But I've consumed some other alien media of late, so I figured it'd be a good thing, and I'm glad that we both don't. Maybe you've heard of. I'm going to talk about Stephen Greer.
I don't know who that is.
Okay, well then this will be perfect because I kind of wanted to look at this whole alien thing, and so it's good that we don't have the same people that we've listened to. But I think maybe we should start out with. I don't know. Do you think we should start out with? I think we're going to have to. I think we're going to have to start out with whether you or I, or what each of our personal thoughts are on the existence of aliens in general, and then we can probably dive into if we think aliens have ever visited humans.
Okay, because that's how I was going to break it apart.
Okay.
I think that it's very likely that alien life exists. I don't know if that alien life is advanced enough to leave their planet. And I have no idea if alien life has visited our planet. I think that a lot of the alien stuff that we get is just as, if not more likely, to be misinformation by the government.
Yeah, and we'll get into some of that kind of stuff a little bit later. But I, too, given how vast the universe is, believe that there's probably life out there. Whether that life isn't intelligent like we are or not. I mean, there's different levels of intelligence. And, statistically speaking, as we rank intelligence, we're the most intelligent on the planet. That doesn't mean everybody, your neighbor may or may not be. But we have complex thoughts and we can enunciate and communicate and there's some other animals that are, entering the Stone Age now. If you heard about that, the chimpanzees, I think, have entered the Stone Age.
I've heard that.
So we're
very particular groups that are with humans.
Yeah.
In close contact with humans.
And the other thing is, have they visited humans? I don't know. I guess I would say probably not. Or, if they have, probably not recently, not since we've invented radar and stuff. I don't know.
Sure.
But the thing is, space is so big that anybody looking back from a habitable planet or a potentially habitable planet, and if they're looking at Earth, they're seeing dinosaurs walking on the face of the planet because the light hasn't got there from us yet. So they don't know that we're an advanced civilization. They think we're a bunch of dinosaurs walking around because that's just how that distance works. Even though light is super fast, that's how that distance works, is they're not seeing us as we are today. So for them to say, hey, there's dinosaurs there, why don't we get in our spaceship and fly for a few million years or what, whatever. Who knows how fast they can travel. But
right. I mean, we can use our imagination to imagine how they could fly faster than the speed of light, and that's how it would have to work. I don't know if there's any strong evidence to show that you can fold space, like you can in sci-fi.
Yeah. And,
it'd be wonderful if we could.
There's lots of hypotheses, theories out there of how to, get places quicker than, eons. But then also it's like, well, can they look faster than light too? Because they would have to also have like a telescope that would be able to look at the light that we're emitting right now, not the light that we emitted, millions of years ago. So, because otherwise they would still see dinosaurs even if they could get here, and the dinosaurs would be gone. So it gets really kind of mind-boggling and crazy when you start thinking about the distances in space.
Yes, it is. It's even more mind-boggling to know that the pyramids were landing sites for alien spacecraft.
Yes. Actually, you know what? I just found out that aliens have visited us because my butthole just tingled. So I think it's my time soon. Avenge me.
There's a lot of alien abduction stories, and they all sound very similar. That does not necessarily mean that it's aliens doing it or that it's real. Yes.
Well, and I don't know. Maybe I'll start with Stephen Greer because I think that's a little more mainstream. And he's, I guess he's technically a doctor. I don't remember of what, but not extraterrestrial studies. He's like a different sort of doctor. And, so my wife had started watching Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, which is like a little docuseries. And then she wanted to watch their feature-length documentary called Unacknowledged. And okay. I will say that he definitely is a lot more sane than the Ancient Aliens and History Channel.
Okay.
So a lot of the Ancient Alien stuff is they find a human skull, and then they look at it and say, oh, it doesn't have the suture lines. It has to be alien. And so I looked it up real quick because, you've got the Google machine in your pocket at all times. And I don't watch this stuff. It was when we were over at somebody else's, but it was like, yeah, those kind of disappear anywhere between age 7 and 70. And so some people die before they disappear. Sometimes they don't disappear. Like it's not a huge deal. Like it's not a medical mystery that should make anybody go and say, well, it doesn't have the same lines that most skulls have, so it's got to be an alien. And that's not even pseudoscience. That's just wishful thinking on the show's part. They just get these crazy people in there and they say, okay, what can we, randomly say is aliens today?
Sure.
But this guy, he's a little more methodical, and he's apparently got, dossiers on lots of different things. And they brought in people that allegedly worked for the Air Force in Roswell, and they claimed that their job was misinformation and they weren't able to discuss about things, but they totally saw something there. And I guess the Stephen Greer's newest thing is he believes that anybody can contact aliens if they want to. And
really
And his belief is that aliens don't want to do us any harm, and they're more worried about us blowing ourselves up than they are of anything else, because of our nuclear capabilities. So already you can kind of tell, without getting into any of his alien data or facts, as he claims, that he's got an agenda.
Right.
Right. The aliens are peaceful. They're not going to hurt us. Which there's really nothing on our planet to give anybody that impression. I mean, look at humanity from the dawn of time. Look at animals fighting each other. Just look at everything in nature. It's always a struggle. I suppose you could evolve to the point, right, where you wouldn't need any of that. But
I always thought it would be interesting to meet aliens until I heard Stephen Hawking. I was going to say Richard Dawkins, but Stephen Hawking that did a little speech about it. And in this little statement he made, he said that meeting an alien civilization would be like the Native Americans meeting Europeans for the first time. And I was like, that is probably the truth, dude. Yep. That is probably the truth. And it did not go very well for the Native Americans, and we are the Native Americans in that scenario. So yeah, it's probably, if there is a more advanced alien civilization, it would be not good for us if we came into contact with them. Yeah. Most likely.
But so anyway, Stephen Greer believes that, and now I haven't seen, this is his new series out, the Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. But in summation, and again, not having watched it or not being an expert on contacting peaceful aliens whenever I choose to, you can apparently meditate and get into a deep meditative state and reach out to the cosmos and communicate with these friendly aliens. Okay. So I don't know much about that, other than I don't know if you've heard of a study called the God Helmet. Mm-mm. So this was a clinical medical study that they did, and they built this helmet to stimulate with electric shocks or electric impulses different areas of your brain, and they would put it on you, and people who would wear this helmet would claim to see angels in the room. They would claim to see deceased loved ones in the room, and so they were the patients anyway, or the subjects, were 100% convinced that this helmet allowed them to tear through the life-death veil and see heaven and things. And they all reported similar senses of euphoria as the extremely devout experience in a church service. So it was stimulating that same area of the brain, whatever area that is, me not being a scientist or doctor. But I was curious because I was thinking, that was the first thing that popped into my head, is if you are able to somehow, through training or, willful delusion, activate certain areas of your brain, you could certainly believe you were communicating with something or somebody. I mean, it's kind of like how a Ouija board works.
Yes. Yeah, you can't have a Ouija board where you're working alone.
You can, but it loses the charm.
Or you have a serious illness.
Yeah, that too. And then we'll look forward to watching the Hollywood horror film remake of your story. But in the documentary, so that bit aside, I just figured I had to mention that just up front, that he has some kind of out there claims. But for this documentary, he went through and presented all this evidence. And his big thing was, stop asking the people that believe that aliens are here to give you proof. We've given you proof. There's plenty of proof out there. And then he proceeded for, the hour and a half of the documentary to not really give conclusive evidence or proof.
Right.
So it's kind of hard to take him at face value. Now, I know the Pentagon did release a bunch of UFO papers recently.
Their papers just confirmed the leaked information we already had.
Yeah, that they saw something they couldn't identify doesn't necessarily mean it's an alien.
that they saw something they claimed they couldn't identify.
Yes.
That's more important. They claimed they couldn't identify it. I am partial to the idea that a lot of the alien sightings are a part of like the old Cold War game and the current geopolitics.
Yeah.
We're seeing this crazy thing that the U.S. military is not capable of, and here's the evidence that's leaked to blah blah blah.
Yeah.
I'm partial to that theory. It's possible that there's aliens, of course. I'm not going to deny that. My fantasy and wonder wants that to be true.
Well, yeah. I not first got introduced to aliens. It was at a barbecue, and I mean, of course, like growing up watching Star Trek and X-Files and things, it was always, aliens were everywhere.
Did you watch Star Trek as a child?
Yeah.
See, I did not. I saw a couple episodes on UPN 9.
Okay.
But we didn't have satellite or anything like that growing up, so...
No, my dad had them all on VHS.
Oh, see, my dad was not into it at all.
Okay,
my parents weren't into sci-fi. They were Westerns and old movies and Disney movies and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, and earlier on, I think TNG was still on the air, and then completely blanking on your favorite captain's
Deep
show.
Space Nine.
Deep Space Nine.
Deep Space Nine.
And then Voyager, and then Enterprise, and we watch like all of those every week. They're just over the local. I think it was so it was after. This was like during high school is when I kind of really started watching that stuff, because then we actually had satellite at that time.
Mm-hmm.
But the first thing that I kind of read that was somebody seriously, like honestly believing that there were aliens that had come down and visited us was Chariots of the Gods by Erich von Däniken. And I think I've talked about him before on the podcast, but not regarding aliens so much as religion, because he's I don't know if he's still living, a devout Catholic. And he kind of went through the entire Bible and explained every miracle as having been happened or caused by aliens. And
yes.
and so, he's like, okay, so when Lot's wife turns into the pillar of salt, it's because the alien warp core overheated and went nuclear, and we totally went and checked the trees. He did not. And there's totally radioactive evidence in their bark and their cross section. And that's completely 100% fabricated. He never went to check the trees. He just wrote it because he thought it sounded nice. But that was like my first exposure to somebody who was published and believed that aliens were here and doing things.
That doesn't sound to me like that person believed. That sounds to me like they were trying to make a profit off of people who didn't have access to the internet.
Well, and possibly, and this is an older book, from the 70s or 80s,
right.
maybe.
You can say whatever you want in 1970 in a pulp novel.
Yes. And then he made, and he wrote, I think, a couple sequels to that and further expounded his heavy air quotes beliefs.
Right.
But, a further like moral character research into him, not that, and we poo-poo the police for doing this when they go and try and, arrest somebody. But, he is convicted of some crime somewhere. So he's not necessarily the most straight-laced person. And it's different because we're not armed and going to try to apprehend him. We're just talking about his ideas.
Yes.
So when you say it sounds like somebody trying to make a profit, that's definitely not out of the realm of possibility.
No. And I think a lot of it's scamming. A lot of it's scamming because I used to listen to the late night NPR,
Okay.
And not NPR, it would be talk radio. And it was Coast to Coast. You ever listen to Coast to Coast?
I haven't listened, but I'm vaguely familiar.
People would call in claiming to be aliens. And people would call in claiming to be alien experts. and the host would have conversations with people who claimed to be possessed by aliens.
Perfect.
Right, and that's kind of how I feel about a lot of the alien stuff.
Yeah, and I think that is probably the biggest hurdle is if you believe or if you have found, let's just say you've found concrete evidence of alien visitation. The problem is anytime you mention the word alien or extraterrestrial or UFO or what have you, you attract all of these like really nutty people. And as soon as the nutty person tries to associate themselves with you, you become discredited. So even if you had all of the data and you were ready to go and brief somebody on this, you're never going to get that brief out before somebody makes a crack about it or associates you with a crackpot or, any of those things. So it feels like it's a very difficult field to try and prove conclusively without grabbing like an actual flying saucer with an alien coming out of it. And even then, with all the deep fake technology we have today and CGI stuff, like there's almost no way to know for sure.
Unless you see it with your own eyes.
Yeah.
It's difficult. I listened to a program called Mysterious Universe. Have you ever heard of this?
No.
My good friend, who's a crazy hippie, he introduced me to the show. And they talk about some things that are true. A lot of it is alien abduction and crazy stuff like that.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of similarities in a lot of the stories. Usually it's people who they're seeking out aliens or something of that nature, and they find it.
Yeah.
Right? If you look for something, you're going to find it, as the saying goes. And I think that's a big part of it, too, are people who have mental health issues potentially already convince themselves that they're seeing something weird. I know that Skinwalker Ranch seems to have a lot of crazy shit happening at it.
Yep.
And the government tries to put a stamp down on that, which tells me it might be just a cover-up for a military base, potentially.
Yeah, or they might just randomly pick something from, the History Channel's lineup and say, let's just stamp down this one thing. And then that'll keep everybody looking over there. And
right.
We can continue doing our stuff over here,
Bob Lazar is kind of a similar story to that, where you don't know who Bob Lazar is.
No.
Okay. Bob Lazar was a guy who claimed to work at Los Alamos nuclear testing facility, and he got hired to work on a secret military base that does in fact exist.
Okay.
And he claimed that they were working on ships that were crashed, and he has a lot of crazy stories attached to that.
Okay.
And he wrote a book and he went on Joe Rogan, and one of the things about Bob Lazar that makes his story believable was that the government did actively try to unperson him in the 80s and the 90s.
Okay.
So they tried to deny that he worked for the government at Los Alamos, which he proved. He produced documents saying that he did. And there's no record that he ever went to MIT, but yet somehow he was hired to be a rocket scientist at Los Alamos nuclear facility.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like real questionable, but where did only has a record of ever graduating high school, but you hired him to be a rocket scientist at a government nuclear facility.
That seems legit.
He also produced documents proving that this military base that the government denied, and then after a time admitted existed. So he knew about a military base that the government said didn't exist, and then now they say does.
Okay.
And he also predicted an element on the periodic table that didn't exist yet being discovered before it was discovered.
Okay.
There's some interesting information that he's had. So a lot of the evidence, it's all circumstantial to an extent.
Yeah.
Other than the Los Alamos lab thing, there's like very solid evidence to prove that the government's trying to unperson him.
Yeah.
And force him into a bad position in life. And he's done some shady things as a result. Again, one of those kind of things where he was caught kind of scamming people, but that was after he kind of was unpersoned by the government.
Okay.
And he claims that the government does have nuclear spacecraft and they are trying to learn from them.
Yep.
Well,
and it's interesting because even
also,
in the Stephen... Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry to cut you off, but Bob Lazar also said that it is possible that it was a setup and that they allowed him to see this stuff knowing he would go forward or come forward to the news in an attempt to threaten the Russians.
Okay.
Like an advanced kind of like plot.
Yep.
As part of the Cold War. He fully admits that everything that he saw might be a lie.
Yep. Well, that's interesting.
It does very much appear that he is at the receiving end of a conspiracy against him by the government.
Yeah,
for sure. But anyway, go ahead.
So, and you can just get one of those. It doesn't have to be alien related. The government just has to decide to not like you. And then boom, you're at the receiving end of a conspiracy. But I was going to say, it was interesting because the Stephen Greer documentary brought up, and they were so nervous because they brought up at the beginning that these aliens are peaceful and they just want to communicate with us and they're so advanced. And, one of the big complaints against the whole documentary is, well, if they're so advanced and peaceful, like, where are they? Like, what are they doing? They can't shut down our nuclear sites or anything like that. So, but they at the end of the documentary there, they were kind of positing or putting forth that they believed that the United States government could fake an alien invasion and that they have the technology and the aircraft to do so. And the average citizen would not be any wiser. Like the average citizen wouldn't be able to tell if it was a government craft or an alien craft. So I think that tells you just how far possibly some of our military technology has come. But, the point of that would be, again, further controlling the populace. Or in the documentary, it would be to wage war against the peaceful aliens. But I think in the government scenario, faking an alien invasion, it would be solely to control us, the people, and have nothing to do with actual aliens.
Yeah, it'd be a version of Atlantia versus Oceania or whatever. I can't remember the 3 nation states in 1984 anymore, but
yeah, or
they were always at war.
Yeah, it would be similar to the war on terror.
Well, if you want to bring it to reality, yeah, the war on terror is perfect. The war in Ukraine, potentially. Yeah. We'll see in time. Yeah.
I guess the Ukraine forces pushed Russia back and then found a mass grave. But then when you think of like the 2 most corrupt countries in the world are Russia and Ukraine, I don't know about world, but like they're up there. It kind of really makes you wonder, like when you get some of this news and you're like, well, did they really find a mass grave though? Because that's all the Ukraine needs is Russia to do something completely atrocious to get the backing of everybody and get a full-blown like world war going over there.
Let's say there was a mass grave. Was it the Russians that created the mass grave or was it the Ukrainians? I've heard no evidence to prove
also
that
another
Russia.
Good question.
We know that they have a very difficult time with coming out with press releases that don't have Nazi references in them.
Yeah.
They just released something the other day about a little boy that saluted the tanks that went by to the front, and in the background there were little girls doing the Nazi salute to the same said tanks.
Okay.
Yeah. The propaganda is strong.
Well, and that's something happening right here on Earth. So and we don't know what's going on over there. And so I
Absolutely
think
not.
it's very difficult to say that any one person would know what's going on with aliens and whether they're here or not.
Right. Well, did you see this was maybe, I don't know if it was real recent. Putin sent out a message to the American public about American inflation. Did you see that?
No.
It was very interesting. You should seek it out. I could send you a link.
Okay.
But Putin basically said that America's experiencing inflation because the U.S. government has been printing money like mad over the last several years, and that our money supply has been inflated by 40%, and we should expect to see 40% inflation as a direct result.
Yep.
More or less. It's more complicated than that, obviously.
Well, yeah.
And that's kind of where Russian propaganda, at least the stuff that I've seen, which we've discussed on the show and personally, it's hard to, because they're banning Russian propaganda, it's even hard to know what they're really saying. We only get little snippets that happen to make it through the firewall.
Yep.
And most of the propaganda I hear is just the Russian government telling the truth about the American government.
Yeah. I mean,
not
you know,
that the Russian government isn't telling lies as well. They certainly are. I just haven't happened to hear any of those lies recently. It doesn't take a whole lot to talk smack about our government.
No.
So, in my opinion, the most effective propaganda is true.
Yeah. Well, and by and large here, if you're watching American media, you only hear what the government wants you to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's something that you think is super benign, but if you watch, you know, like the BBC or, you know, just the different countries' coverage of the event that happened in America, it's sometimes it's drastically different.
Well, the BBC's propaganda as well, but
yes, but it's different propaganda, so they don't propagandize the exact same points that America does.
yes.
So if you're watching the same news story or a news story about the same news event, and you watch the United States media versus, you know, the BBC, there's going to be enough differences that kind of make you realize that somebody's intentionally messing with the facts here.
Oh yes, it's like in our news they try to say that Russians are being squeezed by American sanctions, but I watch a channel by a Danish guy that lives in Siberia, and he's been doing updates on the prices in his local Siberian town.
Yeah.
And none of the prices have gone up. I guess maybe it's Russian propaganda, but that'd be pretty deep level involvement with this fucking random dude that lives out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Who literally shows you with his camera. He walks into the store with the camera and shows you the prices on the shelves in the store on the side of the street.
It's all a set, man.
It could be a set. I'm doubting it, though.
It could be like it's the Truman Show.
Videos.
Yeah, it's the Truman Show in the wilderness.
It could be. Like I say, he does woodsman videos. That's why I watched him back, started watching him before all this stuff happened.
Yep.
But, yeah. I don't think, I'm not even sure if he's a Russian citizen, to be honest with you.
Oh, yeah. So I think I'm about halfway done with the cigar.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think the same as last time, really. It's been really consistent throughout.
Very consistent. I've been
trying to smoke it a little slower this time.
As am I. I'm not getting a lot of depth of character on this cigar for some reason.
Nope.
It's really not well-rounded. It's one note. It's a good note.
It's a fine note. I think the Cameroon was better.
Yes. Yes, I agree. It's fine. It's not something I'd write home about. So far, we'll see.
So far.
Not that it's bad.
It is something I would podcast about, though.
Right. Maybe it's all the alien talk that's souring my tongue.
Could be.
I don't think so, though.
This cigar is the linchpin in our defense against the imminent alien invasion, and the aliens want this to taste bad to human palates. So,
right.
But it doesn't taste bad. So that's just fantasy that I was saying. Maybe we should put our addresses down and we'll get some like tinfoil sent to us to make some helmets. But we can really just like cook chicken in the oven then.
You're right. Yeah, I have plenty of tinfoil. I'm not too worried about it, I guess. I was really excited. I went to a store in a different town, and they had bullets there. So I actually got some shotgun ammo for pheasant hunting season.
Okay, good.
And some 22s and some gold dots. So I saw some gold dots, and I was like, fuck yeah, I'll get some gold dots.
Did you take your hovercraft, and were you wearing your gray man suit in this other town?
I was not.
No.
I did buy a bucket of 22 rounds, though.
Okay.
So that was nice. Around here, the 1,400 round Remington buckets, they don't have those here for some reason anymore. They get sold out right away, which is super disappointing in my opinion. But
yeah. Is the 22 ammo still crazy expensive?
They did have 45 and 40 and stuff. What do you say?
Oh, I was just asking, is the 22 ammo still crazy expensive?
No, it wasn't that bad. I think it was $100 for 1,400 rounds.
Oh, okay.
Which is more expensive than it was years ago, but inflation and stuff.
Yeah.
We used to be able to buy $5.50 for about $25. So it's not completely unreasonable to spend $100 for 14. I don't think.
Yeah.
The most expensive 22 I ever bought, I bought a box of $5.50 for $75 during the Obama administration.
Okay.
And I had none. I had no ammo, so of course I bought it. And then I traded it later to a guy that needed that ammo more than I.
And that's how you got your alien costume.
Right, yeah, that's exactly it. And I needed some 4-shot at an ounce and 3/8 at 1,450 feet per second. So
okay,
just enough to go hunting later in the season. That's it. I don't really need a whole lot.
Yep.
I thought about buying more than one box, but I didn't. Didn't want to be selfish.
Yep.
So.
Yeah. I wonder if there'd be any way to know, though, about the aliens.
Maybe in our lifetime we'll find out, but...
Yeah, maybe.
It's one of those unknowable things, man, until after the fact,
Well, yeah, and I mean, now we've got the James Webb up there taking amazing photos, so...
Right.
Maybe we'll see something there, but I gotta think if the alien life isn't within our solar system or just outside of it, there's no way to ever find it because there's probably way more uninhabited planets than inhabited planets.
Yes.
So the odds of happening to point your telescope at one planet where there happens to be a display you can see from space, millions of miles away is pretty slim.
Extremely slim. If we ever find out about aliens, I'm going to predict it will be like the Gulf of Tonkin or any other false flag operation the government does.
Yeah.
Where years and years later, after it's no longer relevant and in the zeitgeist, the government will admit to their wrongdoing and nobody will pay attention to it.
Like Dresden.
Will still deny the government wrongdoing because the government released the information in such a way to where it didn't make the headlines. Because, of course, the corporations and the government are one in the United States, so...
Yeah.
There's no interest in the news media to talk about how the Gulf of Tonkin was a fucking false flag and that the United States government got involved in Vietnam under false pretenses and all those people that went there and died for nothing.
Yeah. Well, they've been conditioning the American population for a long time. and it's only gotten worse and worse with social media and everything, because the collective societal attention span is so short.
Unfortunately.
Like everybody was up in arms over the Panama Papers and the Pandora Papers. Well, more so the first one. And then the second one, they came out and people were talking about it for like maybe a day and a half. And then nothing. And they were on to the next thing.
What about Ghislaine Maxwell?
Haven't heard a peep from her about her.
Haven't heard a peep. I was at a party and my brother claimed that Ghislaine was killed in prison. And I didn't find any news sources that corroborated that.
No, I don't think so. I think that's just trying to sensationalize something, I think.
Right. He probably had some misinformation that he received on social media.
Yeah.
And it's like, what about all the people, though, that were listed? I still see that Bill Gates is moving around and doing his speeches, and not every time he goes up there is somebody calling him out for being on, Pedophile Island.
Yep.
That should be the only thing they talk to him about ever again in public. In my opinion. Not that my opinion.
And Bill Gates and Elon Musk.
Was Elon Musk on Pedophile Island?
I don't know if Bill and Elon were there, but they certainly ran in the same circles, and both have pictures taken with him.
Bill Gates was on Pedophile Island many times.
Okay.
Proven. I don't know about Elon Musk. It wouldn't surprise me, I guess.
Well, yeah.
Either way, it wouldn't surprise me. Who the fuck knows? But there are certain public figures who were.
Yep. Stephen Hawking was.
Really? Isn't that shocking? On the island?
From what I've heard, I don't have the full list of collaborated facts of
That's
people
horrible.
Being there.
Steven Pinker was.
And I suppose it's one of those things where, if you were there one time, possibly you would be unaware, but I'd find that still pretty hard to believe.
I would find it very difficult to believe you would go to some crazy billionaire's island
and not know realize
what was going down.
Yeah.
That's not how it works. It's not like you invited me to your house and, I don't know, before you lived there was some crazy shit going on.
Yeah.
Which there was. We all know that. But
well, yes. And we're still working on cleaning that up.
Yes. Are you really?
No.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, geez, Crease, it's been some time.
Yeah. But it's one thing if you're like the average person and there was crazy stuff that happened, our front door got kicked in, before we moved in. And, you don't just go and replace your door frame as an average person. Like if the door closes and locks and there's a steel plate there now, that's fine. We've since replaced the door, and the frame, but if you're a billionaire, it's like if there's something goofy that the previous owner had done, you get that taken care of that day. You just pay somebody,
Right. Your reputation would be important.
Yeah, and if you're a pedophile and you're inviting people to your island, your private island, they're gonna know. That's something they're going to learn. Like it's his own private island. He's not going to tidy up all the pedophilia stuff when he invites people over. Like he only invites those people over that are into that kind of thing. Yeah,
I'm gonna guess that the non-pedophiles just don't go there.
Yeah, we've got the listening room downstairs with all the vinyl records. Guess who I don't invite to the vinyl listening room? People that don't like music.
That's why I've never been there.
You've been there.
I have. And I like music fun.
Yeah. And to be fair, it was just an over the shorts kind of thing. It wasn't anything.
Yeah, you don't fly on the pedophile palace plane.
Yeah.
80 times.
Yeah.
If you're not into that.
And you can't tell me you thought she was 18.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, we're not talking 17 and a half year olds who are on this island. You know what I mean?
There were some 15s and some 14s.
Yeah.
And some 17s as well. From what I understand, there was a few, unfortunately. It's not a good thing.
No.
None of them were 9, from what I understand. Of course, I don't really know all the details. I haven't looked that deep into it.
Well, yeah, it's one of those things I don't really need to look deep into. Like, if your name's associated with him, like, that's enough for me.
Right. I know the Clintons were involved.
Yeah. I gotta say, man, this cigar has gotten very sour, and I've been trying not to smoke very fast, but it's not...
I think you gotta be smoking it too fast. Mine's not that bad.
Okay. I mean, I'm gonna put it down and kind of let it, like, sit, but I don't know, man. I'm just getting...
Yeah, mine's woody. I got 2 inches left or so. Maybe,
okay.
Yeah, I'd say 2 inches left. It's woody. It's not too bad.
That's what I got left, but it's I'm not digging it.
Yeah, mine's not terrible. It's definitely one of those ones where you have to let it sit if you smoke too fast. It's like the little cigarillos.
Yeah.
It's like that where you have to smoke a cigarillo very slow on purpose. And this is one of those cigars, I think, where you just got to take it slow on purpose. Slow it down, you know.
Yeah, so it probably doesn't match my my smoke style, but
you used to smoke a lot slower.
I did. That's true. But when you start doing a podcast and we're trying to kind of finish at the same time, which, you know, taken out of context could sound kind of scandalous, but
right, yeah, we have to do them in a timely manner, I suppose. But they take what they take, man. They take what they take.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I'm not trying to rush through it. I just try to keep pace with you is what I try to do. So.
Mm-hmm.
And now that I've been smoking more cigars too, it's easier to, you know, smoke them at a little quicker pace, I guess. Because I remember when we first started smoking together, you'd smoke almost 2 to my 1.
I do remember that. Yeah. Yep, I would light up a second cigar and be done with it about the same time as you were done with the first.
Yep.
Which is not a good habit to get into.
Well, too late.
Oh, well. You enjoyed them.
Yes. Savored, if you will.
Yes. Yeah, these are definitely cigars where you have to, like, really let them cool, I think.
Yeah.
Which is okay.
It's fine. It is fine.
Yes. So, aliens. I think a lot of it's nonsense. There is some real information that comes through, of course. The Bob Lazar thing is the most convincing evidence I've ever seen. But even he says that it might be misinformation by the government.
Yeah.
I think he might even be an agent of the government like Alex Jones.
Okay.
Because Alex Jones is fed information by the CIA. From his own admittal. He's fed information from the CIA. So some of it's real and some of it's not real.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't surprise me if Bob Lazar was a government agent in that sense.
That's why it wouldn't surprise me if your Siberian Woods guy is an agent of the Russian government as well.
It's possible. It's been talked about in his comments. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
And
I mean, it's really tough to say.
It is tough to say, and he's got a lot of good information about woodsman stuff in the forest. Yeah. You know, so being a person that lives in the taiga myself, I enjoy his content.
Yeah,
but it's really difficult to say. It'd be very. I don't believe that it is misinformation from Survival Russia is the name of the channel. If anybody wants to go and watch it.
Go do their own research.
Go ahead and check it out. Survival Russia. I don't think it is misinformation, but it is very possible that it is. And he kind of stopped doing that sort of content with the prices because he was getting so much blowback.
Oh, okay.
So, I don't know. Impossible to tell, really.
Yeah.
Especially because he does his channel in English. So it is intended for an American audience. American and English.
Yes.
So, where the English speaking group is a large audience on the internet. So
that is true.
I do occasionally watch videos in non-English, but not very many. I know that there's a whole non-English speaking internet out there, but I don't participate.
Yeah, we don't want no part of that.
I do some. I'll do watch videos and stuff like that.
Okay.
Because they get a lot of watches that we don't have access to here.
Yep.
Especially Japanese domestic market watches, which is mostly what I'm interested in. But
you could go there and buy them, right?
Yeah, you can buy them here.
Oh,
you just can't get a warranty on them.
Oh, yeah.
And it's much more difficult to buy them. You have to go through a dealer. So there's several dealers that you can go through. Even some American dealers get access to some of that.
Okay.
Very limited quantities.
Yeah.
So same with bowling balls. They have international bowling balls that you can't really get in the States. But there are dealers you can get them through.
Well, I just want everyone to know it took Mike 52 minutes to bring up bowling.
Is that a comment that they talk about?
No. I just, most of our podcasts kind of go back to bowling when we're done talking about the main topic, you know?
Yeah, it's because that's what I do.
And we still have cigars left to smoke, and it's like, well, bowling.
Yeah, I fucking love bowling. Yeah. Bowling season started, people.
Yeah.
So that's what I'll be doing weekly from now until March, April, something like that. We'll see.
Yeah.
I want to do the national tournament this year.
What's that?
They have a big national team and doubles and singles event every year. I don't know where it's going to be this year. Last year it was in Vegas. We'll see. Supposedly they're going to start traveling again to do the big national tournament. My dad wants to do it, so I'd like to go and bowl with him before he dies. But he's many years from dying, hopefully. But everybody gets older every year, so
it is true.
I would like to go and bowl with him in that event at least once. And I'd like to bowl with him state this year, too. I don't think our team's going to do as well as my team did last year, but oh well.
Well, you can't do well every year, I suppose.
Yeah, you can. But everybody else has to do bad then.
Yeah.
By comparison. So. Sarah just started painting the entryway to the house, too.
Yeah, I saw that.
Oh, she posted stuff online?
Yeah.
Of course she did.
She posted something about, reclaiming or whatever, or more white walls in the house. And so I commented and said, well, if you run out of white walls there, we got plenty here, so.
Yeah, she's a big fan of painting.
Yep. That's good, though.
Yeah, whatever. Paint's cheap.
Doesn't take much to breathe a little bit of life into a room.
No. I want to do the smoking room eventually. We have the color picked out. It's just a matter of getting it done. But I don't care when it gets done.
Yeah. Now I know what you're going to say, but I've been letting it sit and then periodically like picking it back up and it's still like just super sour.
Really? Uh-oh. Well, maybe the episode's done.
Why? What'd you do to yours?
No, mine's fine.
Oh. I was gonna say I don't have that much left, and this last. I mean, the rest of the cigar was fine. It was good. It's just it's always like the last few inches where it gets really super sour. So,
well, on these big gauge cigars, a lot of them we've had a lot of success with smoking them all the way to the nub.
Yeah,
but they seem to be more finicky to the speed at which you smoke them.
Yes.
Or they're not really designed and intended to be smoked to the end. That is also a possibility. Whether they'll admit that or not, it's another matter. But
that is true. And to be fair, this is our third nub on the podcast anyway. Yes. So we don't really have the sample size to say one way or the other.
No, we don't. We just do one, so it's hard to be fair. Mine had a little sour note. I have about 1.5 inches left.
Okay.
And that had a sour, icky. It hasn't been great for the last 1/2 inch, but it hasn't been offensive either.
Yeah.
Which is not a great recommendation. It's definitely not as bad as the Cult Blood Moon.
Oh, man. I mean, everything is like, we're not saying this is a bad cigar. It's just, there have been some cigars that we smoked on the podcast here where the first inch and a half has been fairly rough. And then, it evens out and becomes a really, really good cigar. This one, these nubs, they start out good. They start out and then they're consistent. But what I've been noticing, at least on mine, and maybe it's my smoke speed, as Mike says, is the last 2 inches or so just isn't good. So maybe that's just how the nubs are made. I don't know.
Reviews online would, I guess maybe there's a consensus online. I didn't look.
I haven't looked either.
Did not look. I know that they've been recommended to me by people who seem to really enjoy them.
Okay. I like them. They're, a good size. But I don't like the last few inches, so I'm fine wrapping here. And
that's fine.
The truth is out there.
The truth is out there. Yeah. For those who have Audible, go and listen to the Bob Lazar book. I don't know if I'd read it. I think it'd be too difficult to read as far as that. It wasn't that interesting for me to sit down and read. Or listen to the Bob Lazar episode of the Joe Rogan podcast. That was extremely interesting, and it had all of the information that the book had, more or less. Less detail, of course, but it gets you all the basics of the Bob Lazar story. And I would recommend it. It's kind of fun fantasy, I would say. It's kind of like the Air Force guys that claim to have seen Tic Tacs. Have you heard of the Tic Tac, Nate?
No.
There's been several Air Force pilots that have claimed to see UFOs. And a lot of times it's a Tic Tac that's flying around and doing things that our current technology cannot achieve.
Oh, okay.
And the government, that's one of the things that the federal government confirmed was true, that they do have footage of this Tic Tac, that they don't know what's happening.
Okay.
Which a lot of people are saying is potentially a flex and not actually alien technology.
Oh, got it.
Right? It's kind of one of those leaks where, yeah, we have this technology, but they don't want to say they have the technology.
Yeah.
One of those kind of deals.
Do your research. Look into it if you're interested in aliens. Try meditating and contacting them if you want to get off the planet for a little bit. Otherwise, thanks for listening.
Be safe, have fun.